Transylvaniacs, the only show with an asterisk next to only, where two good friends try to work their way through as many Dracula adaptations as humanly possible, and then on the asterisk underneath it says, to our knowledge, though we're not going to look into it.
Yeah, we don't want to know this competition. It would simply crush us.
Exactly.
Every episode we were trying to watch every Dracula movie from Dracula A to Dracula Z. This one is sort of not really in the Dracula alphabet, I guess. This was a little meta.
Yeah, so if you've been watching the show or listening to the show for a while, you know that we have been working with Dracula adaptations, but along with that, the very kind of first on-screen depiction of Dracula was in a film called Nosferatu, which was basically created to avoid copyright law. But as a result, we have now watched several versions of Nosferatu, which is Dracula, but a little bit different. And we're going to be kind of going in on that again today. So 2023 was the year of fun new takes on Dracula. We saw Last Voyage of the Demeter. We saw Renfield. But Will just let me know that actually I think streaming right now, there is a Doug Jones version of Nosferatu.
Yeah, I think available to watch as we're recording on Apple TV.
That is crazy, which neither of us had ever heard of. And then later this year on Christmas Day, we've got the A24 Nosferatu, which we just did a little trailer reaction to, if anybody is curious about what we're looking for in that movie when it finally comes out. But we were just kind of looking at what was on our slate of things to watch, and because we've got two Nosferatus coming up, we were like, fuck it, let's do a third. So today we're going to be looking at the film from the year 2000 titled Shadow of the Vampire, which is a fictionalized retelling of the making of the 1922 Nosferatu.
Yeah, this one is a lot of fun. It's a weird little tangent. It combines fact and fiction in some fun ways. Before we get into it, though, Colleen, how you doing? It's been a minute since we've done a full episode here.
It has. You know, I feel like you and I tend to both get really busy in the late summer, early fall time. And then the whole month of August passes and we're like, oh fuck, we have not recorded literally a single thing. We have a podcast, God damn it. But I've been good. As mentioned, busy. But I've been doing pretty well. I did see that you had an excellent Halloween costume. And B, that you did something fun today that is related to the podcast, if you want to share those.
Yeah, my costume, which was kind of a last-minute throw together that ended up going pretty well, was a Mexican wrestler version of masked country singer Orville Peck, or Luchadorville Peck, as I've been referring to it.
Oh, that's
it was
good.
Great. I had to figure out how I could eat with a bead curtain over my mouth, and the best solution was simply just take it off. But now I have a Rey Mysterio mask that I just own as part of this costume, so it's just wins all around. And then earlier today, I actually went to a little theater version of Dracula at the Ebenezer Maxwell Mansion in Philadelphia. The Ebenezer Maxwell is a Victorian house that is now a museum and a garden. They do a lot of events pertaining to Victorian life in Philadelphia. They do a Victorian literature book club. And they had today actor Stephen Bray doing a sort of one-man show version of Dracula, about a truncated 70-minute version where he was reading all the, a lot of journal entries in the various character voices. It was great. It was a small crowd in a parlor. It felt very intimate. It felt somehow very fitting. It was a presaging a radio show or something.
I love that.
Was a lot of fun. I love a weird little intimate theater experience. I love sitting in a Victorian parlor, and obviously just seeing Dracula stuff is now just what I'm known for aside from eating potato chips. Those are my two lanes, so
No, yeah, you and I have become the recipients of all Dracula memes, both in and out of group chats, which is great. Keep it up. Keep up the good work, everybody. But that's cool. I love I haven't seen live theater in a while, which is too bad. But I would really really like to get back into it. And I was thinking about how there's a couple really good stage adaptations of Dracula, and nobody in Pittsburgh is doing them. Like, why not? Why is nobody doing this? This is ripe. This is a freaky little town that loves freaky shit, as evidenced by the fact that there is an annual production of Evil Dead the Musical in this goddamn city. So why is nobody doing Dracula? But that's a fun idea, though. I feel like the journal entries do kind of lend themselves to a staged reading, which actually would be pretty easy to throw together with just like 5 people. Like that's doable.
Oh yeah.
And I know that in the past you've done the 24-hour Dracula or whatever.
Yeah, the Dracuthon.
Yeah, Dracuthon. There we go.
Yeah, Dracuthon. There's a lot of just Dracula activity going on in and around Philadelphia.
What the fuck, man? Pittsburgh is jealous. We got everybody just attached to the Romero thing, and now it's zombies or bust. Not to degrade zombies, but man.
Yeah, we got to share some of this Dracula wealth.
We really
on the other
do.
side of the state.
I was thinking about theater though because my wife and I went to a wedding recently, and I drove by like a little regional theater, and I saw that they were doing Bad Boy the Musical, and I don't think have I ever talked to you about Bad Boy the Musical?
No.
Holy shit. So it is a musical that came out, I think, in the late 90s that is inspired by the Weekly World News article. Like Bad Boy found in the cave. Yes, it is absolutely deranged. It's really fun. It's really campy. Really over the top. And that got me thinking as well, where I was like, damn, somebody in Pittsburgh got to do Bad Boy. Shit. It's such a fun show.
Oh my god. I will help you get this very specific fringe theater festival going on in Pittsburgh. I will
absolutely. Thank you.
Make the trek for this.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, man, other than that, it's been good. Busy, but nothing too crazy. I'm very excited to talk about this one, though, because I feel like, again, we took a little left turn into making this a Nosferatu podcast, but it is so much the same thing that we're still calling it a Dracula podcast, and you can fight me about that. So, let's dive into this thing. So, as mentioned, this is titled Shadow of the Vampire, released in the year 2000, which details the creation of the film Nosferatu, which is super fun. We've talked about it a lot. There is a 1922 version. There is a 1979 version. There will be a 2024 version. Two of them. I hope everybody knows that is me referencing the two of them meme with the two cats that are identical. Anytime I say two of them, that is what I'm talking about. But if you want to tell us a little bit about the creation of this film, a little bit about the production, who's in the cast, because this cast is fucking stacked.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go with our cast. Playing director F.W. Murnau is John Malkovich.
Holy fuck. Starting strong.
Playing Max Schreck in this version, an actual vampire living in a cave, is Willem Dafoe.
Perfect. No nuts.
As Albin Grau, noted producer and occultist, who produced Nosferatu, is Udo Kier. We're getting a lot of just like classic Dracula guys, and
yes,
this will continue as as this cast goes on. Playing Gustav von Wangenheim, the actor who played Hutter in the original production, is Susie Izzard. I've never known how to pronounce their last name.
I usually say Izzard for her.
Okay, I'm going to use Izzard going forward.
I think Izzard is good, and I also think that she kind of took the James Stephanie Sterling approach, which is Susie Eddie Izzard.
Okay.
Which I do respect, just being like, yeah, just put another name on there, fuck it.
Yeah, just slap it on there.
Yeah, why not? But yeah, great performance by her.
Oh my god, incredible.
So fun.
Playing Greta Schroeder, who is Ellen in this production, in the movie, the Mina analog is Catherine McCormick. And then, again, our last of our just like frequent Dracula guys, playing cinematographer Fritz Arno Wagner is Cary Elwes.
He can't stay away, dude.
No.
What's
I think there's some of these guys that just like, there's a Dracula, they gotta get in on it somehow.
They do. Because Elwes, his fucking filmography is huge. Like, the man cannot stop working, much like Dafoe. But he has been in at least 2 or 3 Draculas, right? Like,
I'm pretty sure. I think of this cast, we've got like, Elwes is at least in Stoker, in like a, Coppola's version.
yes.
Udo Kier is in like some 70s Dracula movies I'm sure we'll get to. And then Willem Dafoe, I don't know if he was in another one before this, but I mean, he's showing up again in Nosferatu in this Christmas. So this guy, he loves this freaky little Batman.
Good God. Can't stay away. But yeah, what a stacked cast. And the director is E. Elias Mirhage, who I don't know who that is. Who the fuck is
Yeah. So I had never seen any of his work before. Looks like, since this, he's not directed like a ton of stuff. He was known primarily at the time for a 1989 experimental horror movie called Begotten, that, as I've read on, features a scene at the beginning with God disemboweling himself with a straight razor.
Jesus.
Which is, I think, what got the attention of Marilyn Manson and Danzig, because he had done music videos for both of them by the time this script came together with writer, what was this dude's name? Stephen Katz.
Got it.
And all of this, all this weirdness also got the attention, of course, of one Mr. Nicolas Cage. In the debut film of his production company, it was called Saturn Films. I didn't include this in my notes, but I thought it was cool is that I was looking online about it, and this was a early film where there's where players of, I guess, a game, an early online game called like Hollywood Stock Exchange could donate small sums of money to be listed in the DVD credits as producers for this movie.
Really?
Which really, like, fascinatingly, like, presaged Kickstarter by, like, what, like...
yeah,
like
20
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So Cage, I think, really... I think this is a project that has, like, Cage all over it.
Oh, absolutely.
But he... Really specifically, I think I saw early on, he wanted to play... Shrek himself, which is not surprising to me. I mean, what is surprising is it took him, another, 23 years to actually be Dracula in something?
Yes, which is shocking.
He abdicated the role when he heard that Willem Dafoe was interested, and this is a movie where he wanted to get a bunch of guys that he'd worked with before together to make something really interesting. He'd worked with Malkovich pretty recently on Con Air, and had worked with Willem Dafoe on Wild at Heart, and he's like, I want to get these guys I really like together and make something, just get their personalities together and get something going with this.
We're gonna make a Dracula.
And that really, I feel that's really telling. I watched some DVD featurettes interviewing Cage about this that are available on YouTube. I can, get those to you that we can put in the show notes. And he talks about a lot about how, these are guys that he feels are kind of on the same wavelength of him as terms of what they're trying to do with their acting. Cage talks about how he's trying to find guys, he's really into kabuki theater, and he's trying to find guys who are bringing that kind of spirit to American filmmaking and acting. He talks about, I think, the Wooster Group, which was what sort of the acting group that Dafoe had helped found, and comes from this very intense kind of heightened emotion, all the stuff that we kind of associate with Dafoe. And Malkovich is John Malkovich, right?
Right.
He's he's Malkoviching all over this production.
She-Mal on Malkovich till I, etc.
Till my being.
That's good. Oh. But yeah, no, it's funny that I would not naturally put these 3 actors together, but thinking about them together, they all have the same essential strangeness that just works fucking perfectly in this. Even though Cage is not on screen, as you said, no project has ever screamed Nick Cage more than this fucking movie.
Oh, yeah.
So to kind of get a little bit into the plot and the conceit of this film, again, this is a fictionalized retelling of the creation of the 1922 Nosferatu, the core tenet being that actor Max Schreck is not a character actor, but in fact a real live vampire. So in this, F.W. Murnau has hired Max Schreck, who he found in a castle, to play Count Orlok in his film. With the, let's try that again. With the understanding that upon completion of the film, he is allowed to kill Greta Schroeder, which is completely insane. So this is great. This is if you have any interest in filmmaking and filmmaking history, you need to watch this movie. It is such a great look into what is actually period accurate equipment and production styles combined with this very heightened horror story about a vampire who is, secretly on a film set. So in a kind of very clever way, this does a little bit follow, obviously both the story of Nosferatu, but Murnau kind of becomes the Harker in a way, because they begin on set and he, films his scenes that, Schreck is not in, and then he convinces his entire crew to take this voyage to a remote inn in the former Czechoslovakia and to film with this elusive method actor who will only be appearing at night in order to get into the character of Count Orlok. And he will never break character because he's so committed to his role, which is just a fun kind of goofy conceit. I also think there's a lot of very cheeky little jabs at method acting in general in this, which I did love because I hate method actors. I think that shit is so fucking dumb. And I feel like I have a little bit of ground to say that as somebody who has a legitimate degree in that and did this somewhat professionally for a decade, but God, that shit is unbearable to me. So to see this taken in such a funny direction is a delight. So basically, you do follow your general trajectory of a Dracula movie here, but instead of the characters of Dracula / Nosferatu, your Harkers, your Hutters, your Counts, this is now pushed back outward to Murnau, the director, and Schreck, and the kind of key tension between them. Eventually, shit starts going downhill with the production. They lose one of their cinematographers. Max Schreck is straight up killing crew members. He and Murnau are at each other's throats, literally and figuratively. There's a whole bunch of tension with the financiers of the film. So there's sections where Murnau has to leave, has to get himself a new cinematographer, which is where Cary Elwes comes in. And then, of course, everybody kind of slowly realizing that there is, in fact, something very, very wrong with Max Schreck. We've got drug use. We've got weird, unnecessary nudity. We've got all sorts of great stuff, eventually culminating in the final scene of the film of Nosferatu, in which Greta sacrifices herself to kill the vampire, where the vampire, in fact, kills her, kills everybody else in the room, and then is finally killed by a few people opening a garage door, which Schreck has actually cut the cord of, but they overcome that. And burn him with sunlight, which all of this is captured on film by Murnau. And kind of, it's great. It's his descent into creative insanity. It is a mirror story of Dracula itself. It is a behind the scenes and a plot in and of its own. But that's my quickest summation of that. But let's talk a little bit about what you thought of this movie. What's your history with this? What was your top overview review?
So this is a movie that I'd heard people recommend to me a lot, especially as I told them I was starting this podcast, getting as people knew, I was into horror movies and vampires and Dracula in particular. But I hadn't seen it until a screening last year of a film series that I'm on the board for, and part of that is, I guess up until recently, it's been hard to find streaming. I remember trying to watch this back in college, and I just couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, it's an indie film, and it's tricky, yeah.
Yeah. Even the DVDs were very hard to come by. It feels like it got a very limited release in the US. And now it seems like it's a little bit easier. Just maybe since last year when I saw it at this museum film screening. It's on Amazon. Is that right? Is that where you watched it? Amazon Prime?
So it's on Amazon Prime and on YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube might be a little, murkier in terms of legality, but it's, there in its entirety.
It's there. Yeah, it's up there, whatever. It's got a shitload of ads in it, and if you live in a swing state, you do not want a shitload of ads right now.
Yeah, it's rough right now in Pennsylvania, folks.
But yeah, this is available to stream, and there is obviously a DVD version. But the whole thing is just up on YouTube, which has been the case for a lot of the films we've watched for this podcast, and yeah. I do respect that. But anyway, you were able to watch it again this time.
Yeah, and I think the first time I saw it last year, I wasn't as sure what to make of all of it. What to make of the tone. And maybe it's because I've been so looking forward to seeing it for so long. Anything that you've been putting on a back burner to watch for that long, how can it live up to whatever expectations you have of it? But I think this time it really kind of clicked together a little better for me. I think it's kind of sly jabs at filmmaking, at the Stanislavski method and method acting. There's like the dark humor that lapses into actual chilling horror all kind of coalesced a little better. And I think a lot of that coalesces around Dafoe's performance, which is absolutely stunning.
Crazy. Really almost shocking. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But unreal. I'm with you there. I hadn't seen this before. It has, again, been suggested to me. But now that we have revisited the original story multiple times, I think this was kind of the perfect suggestion for us to watch next, considering what's coming up in terms of releases. But yeah, I was also surprised by the tone. I kind of thought this would be much more of a straight horror film, but you are correct that there are moments of genuine comedy in this. And as mentioned, Dafoe is on the razor's edge of that. I don't really know how he's doing it, to be completely honest with you. I think that's just how he is, and that's why he's Willem fucking Dafoe. He's iconic and unmatched in terms of the way that he's acting at all times. But this was really fun. I had a good time with this primarily because it feels like a movie of Easter eggs. If you're interested in filmmaking history, if you have seen the original Nosferatu, if you've even seen the one that's with Klaus Kinski, the Werner Herzog one, this will be of interest to you because it is a fun twist on a familiar story with some cool stuff in it. Like, I don't know, I kind of nerded out. I enjoyed seeing all the equipment. I enjoyed seeing the costuming where everybody who's on set is wearing these like white doctors.
Like lab coats.
Like lab coats with the glasses to kind of protect their eyes. Like it was just a really cool look to see how all of that actually went down. And because this is a silent film, the way that, quote, directing worked then is that you would have your two actors and then the director, Murnau Malkovich, is talking out loud, kind of stream of consciousness, telling them what to do beat by beat. And I don't know if that's accurate, but it was certainly fun to watch,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I especially early on before people literally start dying, I kind of want to make a silent movie. This looks very fun.
Yeah, it was cool. And yeah, I thought it was quick. I didn't think it was... My only issues with the film is I feel like there were a few... Because it's a tight 90, there were a few, quote, character arcs that I think needed a little more time to ramp up before shit really hits the fan.
Oh, yeah.
Greta Schroeder starts acting kind of borderline hysterical in the last quarter of the movie. And I felt like there was not really a good reason why, other than the fact that it's clear that she just fucked Carrie Elwes. And, I don't know if that might make me insane, too. I don't know. Unclear. What is the connotation here? Is that positive or negative? I don't know. But I would have liked to see more of her in general, because there were whole swaths of this film where, obviously Greta is not in all of the... Greta/Ellen is not in all of the film Nosferatu, but I did feel like we were missing a lot of her, and she's so core to the end of the film in particular.
Yes, for a character who is... her life being on the line is the core tension of the movie. She is not in it very much.
No, she's on screen for maybe 15 minutes. And I feel like that was something that didn't land for me. But overall, I did actually really enjoy the really bizarre tone of this. I think that, I don't know if that landed for other people, but the fact that this was genuinely kind of creepy to watch, completely hypnotic watching Willem Dafoe on screen, but also funny. He is a pretty fucking great comic actor when he gets the chance to be. I think he's just so often in these villain roles that he doesn't get to do straight comedy. But the way he imbues it in that was genuinely extremely entertaining and very impressive. So I enjoyed this a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think, looking up a lot of the critical reception from when this came out, I think how people landed on the tone and how these actors are playing their characters is really informing what people like about this. A lot of people went different directions on it.
Yeah, please go ahead and read that.
Yeah, I've got two excerpts here. One is from Roger Ebert from a 3.5-star review of this movie. Every horror film seems to become absurd after the passage of years, Pauline Kael wrote in her review of Nosferatu. Yet horror remains. Here, Marriage gives us scenes absurd and frightening at the same time, as when Trek catches a bat that flies into a room and eats it, or when Murnau, knowing all that he knows about Trek, reassures his leading lady. All you have to do is relax, and they say, the vampire will do all the work. And he was clearly very into these performances. Peter Bradshaw, writing for The Guardian, was much less so, and I just thought his... what he drew comparisons to was very funny, so here we've got his quote, which is, the mad visionary director plus wildman actor template is clearly inspired by the legendary relationship of Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski, responsible for the 1979 Nosferatu remake. But the working dynamic between Malkovich and Dafoe is actually much more reminiscent of Gene Wilder and Marty Feldman in Young Frankenstein. When Dafoe suddenly grabs a bat out of the night air and crams it into his greedy gob, it's impossible not to imagine Marty munching away while Gene shrilly complains, don't do that!
Oh, fuck, that's good. That's pretty funny. And honestly, both of those reviews are accurate, but that's kind of why I like this. It is giving... it is giving slapstick, but it's also genuinely pretty creepy. And interesting that they both pointed out the bat moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
That scene is great, because the way it's played is... So, in this scene, Max Schreck is just given this soliloquy, this really... He's asked by two guys in production after production's wrapped for the day, what did he think of the book Dracula? And he goes on this soliloquy about how the thing that was saddest is that Dracula had no servants, that Harker gets to his house, and he has to... for the first time in millennia, or, centuries, he has to remember how to buy bread, how to set a table, how to, where do you get cheese and wine? How do you make a bed for somebody? Suddenly, after years of being a monster, he has to remember how to be a human, and he is reminded of how he had all of these grand things and people to do this for him, and now it's just him in the dust. And then he immediately follows this up by grabbing a bat out of the air and biting its head off. And the two guys who are standing there are like, this is the greatest actor I've ever seen.
And like, fuck, man, that's pretty funny. But it's also very beautiful. Like, that whole exchange, I think we both made notes of that particular soliloquy because it's beautifully delivered. And it's kind of what the original Nosferatu is about in some ways. Like, there's a very intense loneliness that we see in the original film that I don't think is communicated as much in the text of the novel. Where, you know, we've seen a lot of actors over time want to be like, I'm going to take a tragic take on Dracula. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But getting him to actually speak as this character who isn't Dracula, but would understand him better than literally anyone else in the world. And that was gorgeous to watch. And then immediately followed by like fucking Ozzy Osbourne. Like that was, and the, you know, almost Monty Python reaction of the two producers that he's talking to who are, you know, drunk off schnapps. That's the core of this movie is that scene. It is these two very different tones, this kind of dark drama and this borderline sketch comedy. But I don't know why it works so well. But it did. I did not have a moment. I don't know if I laughed out loud, but thinking about it, it is funny. But man, yeah, that scene was stellar, and I'm glad that we both noted to talk about it because that's the good stuff right there.
I think it's really just a credit to Dafoe's acting as some of the lines he has to deliver, because there's at some point where he's maybe, I think, talking to Murnau, and he says something along the lines that he now feeds like an old man peas, sometimes like sparingly and then sometimes all at once. I'm like, who else could deliver the line like an old man peas and have it sound actually like convincing and not just bring the production to a halt?
I don't know. It is literally just Dafoe magic. It's fucked up, man. It's fucked up. Yeah, dude. I mean, I guess we should just talk about, before we circle back to a couple of other scenes that we want to point out, let's go through our main cast here, because there are some really fucking good performances in this film.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we should start, obviously, with Dafoe, and as we've both pointed out, this is unreal even for him. Like, you get used to a certain quality with his work, and again, there's so much of it, he has an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to his filmography. But this is a 10 at all times. Not necessarily in intensity or energy, but he is unrelenting in how committed he is to this role. Which is a fun, you know, mirror of what's happening in the film. But he has this really, you know, heightened, again, borderline slapstick physicality that you do see Max Schreck as Orlok, but to see him doing this off screen is like both funny and very impressive. He moves his body in ways that do not make sense. He moves his face in ways that should not be possible. Like my friend Nick said this once, which is something along the lines of the streamer Germa is cursed with whatever Jim Carrey is blessed with. Like that sort of like weird, hyper elastic, cartoonish exaggeration that he's doing at all times does not make him look human. You believe that like he is some fucking vampire a la What We Do in the Shadows who is just assimilated into human society. But yeah, that's what I think we're probably on the same page with how fucking good he's doing.
Oh yeah, and I think, you know, it's a credit that even though this movie got basically no wide release in the U.S., Dafoe was still nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards the following year. This got nominated for 2 awards. The other one got nominated for, it was also nominated for, I think, Best Makeup, And you know what it lost to? No, actually, this is funny you should mention Jim Carrey, because it lost to How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, no.
Starring Jim Carrey.
Oh, that fucking sucks.
Of all the movies.
Oh, god damn it. But yeah, the makeup is incredible. I mean, like, it looks great. And I also love that they did the accurate black and white film makeup too on the, actors when they're being filmed, the really kind of monochromatic, highly stylized, and then Shrek is like no makeup, but it looks very natural. It's very well done, especially for 25 years ago. But
oh yeah.
Let's move on to our director man himself, the one, the only John Malkovich.
So Malkovich is really one of those actors that I think, particularly in this role, people are really struggling with, because he's going to bring such a specific quality, and I think for this movie it does really work. By all accounts, the real F.W. Murnau was a polite little gentleman, which is not what Malkovich is giving at all. It's not what this, but that's not what this script is. It's taking some real liberties with how some of these actual people are, but for the story it's telling as being kind of this cutting bitch who is going up against forces that he only barely comprehends. He does a great job.
Yep. No, I'm in the same boat there. I think he always brings an intensity to his work that he's always going to come across as like kind of aggressive and weird, even if he doesn't mean to. But if it works perfectly here. I think he's a good kind of proto Hollywood douchebag, demanding creative type. And then once he starts getting fucked up on laudanum, shit really starts to go downhill quickly.
Oh yeah.
And no, he does a good job. I think that his scenes, particularly where he's alone with Dafoe, are the strongest, though. I did like hearing him again do that stream of consciousness directing stuff. But there's a lot going on there. Like, there's a lot to look at. But to just have him and Willem Dafoe in a dimly lit cave yelling at each other is pretty fucking solid to watch. Next up, we've got, let's do Cary Elwes next as the cinematographer, who, to be fair, does not come in until halfway through the movie.
No, he is a late addition, and I think the last time I saw this, I also forgot, like, where does this guy show up?
Yeah.
And then when he literally, comes out of the sky in a biplane and steps into the scene, like, oh, there he is.
Ah, yes.
He is Cary Elwes is great because he's a wonderful little shot in the arm towards the end of this movie.
Yes.
Where, the way it plays out is that the cinematographer, who was on the film before, Wolfgang, it just gets, tormented by Shrek and has a breakdown and has to be removed from the set. And they have to go find another cinematographer. And they bring in Elwes as this, oh god, I guess sort of this, like, he's playing a Cary Elwes character, if you know what I mean. He's kind of a cad, but he's incredibly likable.
Yes, he's kind of the cocky hotshot who's coming in to fix this movie. It's bleeding money. Nobody's going to like it. They weren't able to buy the rights from Stoker's Widow. It's a mess, but, he's here to save the day in his plane. But yeah, he never comes across as a villain. But he is certainly arrogant, which is really Elwes' bread and butter.
Yeah, I'm always pretty glad to see him show up in things. And I think at the end, you need somebody who is coming into a situation that does not make sense and who is trying to put it together in real time and finds that he is too late to make a difference.
Yeah. And is killed rather unceremoniously.
Yeah.
But my only gripe with Elwes is everybody's doing a very exaggerated German accent in this, and I do not know what the fuck he was doing.
Yeah.
It was not great, I won't lie. But again, I always do like to see him. Um, then we've got Susie Eddy Izzard as Gustav von Wangenheim, who is Hutter slash Harker. Stellar. Was so excited to see her. Had no idea she was in this.
Oh yeah, and I forgot she was in it too. This is the thing, I saw it last year, and it was almost like seeing it again fresh. And being like, oh my gosh, these performances, these people are in this. And she is great. I think she's playing a character that is kind of should be a tough character. Is this sort of kind of empty-headed leading man in the movie who is, again, who is finding, again, that they're out of their, she's out of her depth playing against Shrek. The first scene where they interact, where Hutter is going to the castle and Shrek comes out of the shadows is genuinely harrowing, and part of that is the way that Izzard is genuinely playing that fear.
Right. And it's always fun for me to watch actors play actors. Like the layers of like, okay, like this is Susie Eddy Izzard being Gustav, being Hutter, you know what I mean? And kind of seeing how you manage all of that. So the fact that it's so clear in that first reveal scene that this is not Gustav acting, this is genuine fear, that is a credit to that performance from her, because it's very clear in what's coming through when. And also just like a fun time. Wish we saw more of her at the end of the film, but alas, there's not a lot of Harker in the end of the movie anyway. Catherine McCormick is Greta. We already kind of talked about how she's not really in this very much, but I feel like we should touch on that final scene because I think we were both horrified by it. Holy shit. Holy fuck.
The ending scene is actually very disturbing.
Yeah, so as mentioned, Greta becomes somewhat hysterical over the course of this, even in the short time that she's on screen. They are filming the final scene of the film in which Nosferatu attacks Ellen and Shrek is straight up going to murder her. She notices that Shrek does not have a reflection and immediately loses her shit. At this point, Murnau has become so singularly focused on finishing this film that he forcibly drugs her with laudanum in a scene that was genuinely pretty hard to watch. And as a result, just leaves her for fucking dead. Shrek attacks her. The laudanum in her blood causes him to sleep, which kind of gives them a minute to get a plan together to kill him. But it was bleak to see all of that go down and then have Shrek murder the rest of the crew while Murnau is just filming. He has become so engrossed in the film at this point, he's unable to detach himself from behind the camera. And it's just kind of bleak to realize that he wound up making a snuff film. You know? It was tough. It's tough to watch. And I think that is a good climax of this movie because it's about, a man who was willing to do really awful shit for his quote art, and the just throngs of people who died as a result. And that I think is the last 10 minutes of this or so is where you lose the comic tone completely. It's not bad. And I actually think that the little stinger of Malkovich doing direct address and just saying, I think we have it regarding the final shots is that's the crux of the film. It's cheeky. And I did like that as a stinger for the ending. Because at that point, Shrek is dead as well. But man, that was rough. I had a tough time with that. I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah, I think that the ending leaves you on such a unsettling note.
Yeah, it is unsettling, genuinely. And I think horror is one of the genres where the ending matters the most. And that's always what people talk about, particularly with contemporary horror, is like, it was good until the end, or the ending ruined it, or like, how do you interpret the ending? Like, what does the ending mean? But this, I think, did nail it pretty solidly, even if it is a tough watch for what overall is a weirdly lighthearted film.
Yes.
It's kind of silly. But yeah, And then I think our last person, who I think I wanted you to talk a little bit about the actual real one, we have Udo Kier as Albin Grau, who is the producer, costume designer, and on-set occultist for the film. I thought he did a good job, but you had a note that I wanted to talk to you about, which was this really downplays how much of a weirdo Albin Grau was. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
So Albin Grau was like one of the leading occultists in Germany at the time of this release. All of the like Enochian symbols that are just the like when you watch the original movie and you see like just the contract that Hutter gives to Orlok is just a bunch of weird little symbols. So those are actual occult symbols that Albin Grau, wrote and put on that sheet of paper. He was very invested in the occult, and what I think what all these characters are playing a role. They're not playing the real versions of these characters, and I think, unfortunately for Udo Kier, who, again, is like, I mean, he's like the granddaddy of being in, like, weird Eurotrash horror. He is playing too much, he, like, plays, like a very stock, like, nervous financier and producer, where he's like, this is going over budget! And he's and he's more worried about the day-to-day, and I feel like the real man was a much weirder person. And true to form, this movie was the only movie that the production company that made Nosferatu produced before it went under. But I feel like they're doing this guy who's an actual, like, a genuine weirdo, a genuine occultist, a disservice by just having him be kind of like worrying about the bottom line on this film.
Right, yeah. I think it was distilled too much, as you've said. I agree with you there. Not really enough going on. And because the occultism was so important both culturally at the time and to the making of the original film, I would have liked to see it actually involve more. I think that could have been something fun for, Shrek to catch on to, be like, because he has this inside knowledge, etc. But anyway, that's our cast. Overall, honestly, this was a really fun watch. It's quick. It's easy. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to point out, like little bits and pieces? I see you do have a couple of cheeky tidbits here that we can talk about before we move on.
Yeah, I've got, some little odds and ends. One thing I noticed this time is that the train that the production takes out to the to the location is called the Charon, which is the ferry to the underworld in Greek mythology. There's a lot of Greek mythology at play in this. At one point, Shrek has a quote that he pulls out that is, where is the line? But thy strong hours, which is it's a little bit longer than that, and it is a quote from the poem Tithonus by Lord Tennyson. And yeah, I looked up the poem and looked up more about that myth, and Tithonus was a figure in Greek mythology who was granted immortality by Zeus, but crucially was not granted eternal youth. So he just sort of continued to age and crumble apart but never die.
That would be the whole thing, wouldn't it? That's very
would.
Clever. That's clever.
And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in this movie about artifice in reality and immortality as vampirism versus like immortality versus film, because there's in Shrek's cave, he has a castle, but he's basically living in a cave under the castle, and there is a painting on the back that's like a golden disc that feels like a sun, and he talks earlier in the film about how the one thing he misses is feeling the heat of the sun on him. And then you have later in the movie, once Wagner gets onto the set, where he's talking to Shrek about Play-Doh and the flickering images on the cave wall. And, I mean, it feels like, that what is film if not the images, the firing images on Plato's cave, right? It is the representation of a thing becoming the thing. And I think what's interesting, this is a movie that is about immortality, where almost everybody dies. And the interesting wrinkle that this doesn't address, but I think, is interesting if you know a little more about the production and what happened in this film, is that Murnau is so obsessed with this film as being a form of immortality, of things living on celluloid forever. And this is a movie that was almost completely lost. There was a lawsuit brought by Bram Stoker's estate, and all copies of the film were ordered to be destroyed. And it's really just pure luck that one survived, which is how we still have the original Nosferatu. So this is a movie that, the fact that it's about immortality, that is a film that we almost completely lost, and all this would have just been for naught.
No, that's the good shit right there. That's good stuff. And, the Greta at some point expresses her disdain for film acting because she's like, no, I'm a theater actor. I want to be seen by live people. I am giving my life. And with this, and she points to the camera and said, this is taking it from me.
Oh my God, yes.
And then, later for the fact that this film does literally kill her. But it's good. There's some very clever writing in this. And with, again, the Shrek wanting to see the sunrise, there's a very kind of sad moment where he is looking back at some of the filming that has been done on the camera and sees a scene of the sunrise. So again, like filtered through this, it's not the actual sunrise, but it's enough to move him. It's interesting. There's a lot about image and artifice and, again, method acting at some point. Hooder says something along the lines of, he's a Stanislavski lunatic about Shrek, and that made me laugh a little bit. But yeah, this was great. I had a really good time watching it. I think now it is the time for us to rank our Drac and then look at each other's notes. So this one I think goes towards the middle, but in the top third. I actually prefer this to the original Max Shrek, which I know might be heresy, but it's so heightened and amazing to watch. I love that we actually get to hear him speak as opposed to in a silent film. But that's kind of where I'm at ranking wise.
Yeah, I think he's one of our best. I think the fact that he's, doing this extra meta layer, it makes it harder to place him in this,
it does. It's a little tricky.
Ranking, but he is so good in this role. I think, he's doing something similar to Kinski, and we have Kinski pretty high up. I feel like I need to actually go back and maybe make a real tier list so we know where everything is. But yeah,
we've talked about that a few times. I just never did it.
Yeah, listen, stuff comes up. Don't
Shit
look
happens.
at the Letterboxd list that I was keeping up until like a year ago and haven't updated since. Yeah, I think he's in the upper third. I think you're right on the money.
Yeah,
this
it's
is a
good
great performance.
And then, one more thing. I'm going to Columbo it. One more thing. I did like that this shouted out the silent film by having some little intertitle cards.
That was great.
Yeah, that was very clever as well. But yeah, let's pick each other's notes here. I am looking at yours, and I'm gonna go direct and efficient with Malkovich gonna Malkovich. Because that's this movie. You're right about that.
I think he really does. I think he's got this quality. I'm pretty sure the first thing, unfortunately, I saw John Malkovich in, I'm not gonna say unfortunately, was Johnny English. I love Johnny English. Fight me. That was and again, he's like, even in a movie like that, he's gonna bring a weird kind of intensity to it that is very memorable. Unfortunately, my note for you is going to be right along those lines, which is, did not need to hear Malkovich say, nice pussy.
No, God. It, opens with that, and obviously he's looking at a cat, but I was like, ew, please, no. I do not need to hear this at fucking all. That's, the last thing that I am interested in. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
all right, well, we'll just like pause here because I'm gonna have to cut this because I'm trying to look for our tweet. Do we have a tweet? Do you have anything that you would like to read as a tweet?
I could find something, I'm sure. We've got... I mean, I get tagged in so many Dracula memes.
Yes. Yeah, if you want to pull
nearly
one up.
daily basis.
Oh, okay. Actually, you know what? I've got one, so I'll restart this. Okay.
All right, let's go.
And then to close things out with our usual end cap of a Dracula tweet. This one is from @Can'tEverDie. You know what? That's fucking fitting. And they say big potential here. And then attached is a screenshot of their search bar on Twitter, which is Dractua bite on that thing. Which is uniquely stupid in a way I really appreciate.
And if you don't know what that reference is, ask your kids, I guess.
Oh, God. No, get offline. Don't know it.
Yeah,
Leave.
don't know. Go to a cabin in the woods.
Never return. But yeah, that was lovely. Thank you as always, Will, for chit-chatting with me. And then I guess we got a whole shitload of Nosferatus we gotta watch, huh?
We got a lot of Nosferatus coming up, I think. Are we gonna still maybe try and do this Canadian ballet version at some point too?
We are. I'd like to do that one. There's a horrible Italian miniseries I'd like to do, but you know, sometimes we kind of move things around for the new releases, so you'll see what you fucking get.
Yeah, do we want to just like have the rest of 2024 be like the year Nosferatu?
Yeah, why not? Fuck it, we ball.
Alright, let's do it.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you later.
Bye.